Hello, this is Brunky Tech here. So we're going to talk about the shooting that happened with President Trump. Now, I typically like to stay away from politics because I don't want to muddy the water and push somebody out that would want to learn something from me because of my politics. I mean, if you watch me long enough, you'd figure it out what's going to happen. And so but this is one of those bipartisan things. I don't think anybody wants their candidate to be shot. And there's a lot of rumors going around, speculations, and I want to go through and clear all that up because it muddies the water and it doesn't allow us to pay attention to the stuff that we're supposed to. I'm going to go through the role of security here. So there's different functions of security. I might not have the exact name that Secret Service has for these positions, but it's going to be the same concept. So I'm using a system engineering mindset and mythology to break this down to understand what happens. And so you have one part, that's the site prep. So you're going to have people sweep through the whole entire property, make sure that there's nothing funny in there. You know, you're going to have to clean all the rooms if necessary, if there is any rooms. And then you're going to have to set up a security fence, security perimeter. So those are the things that are site prep. It's not all of them, but it's a good list. All right, now we're going to have a actual perimeter. And this is essential in security is when you let everybody in, you want to make sure that they're good to go. They don't have any guns, knives, or anything on that. So you set up an outer perimeter, and as people walk through, you buzz them. You're going to make sure that they don't have anything on them, and they also make sure that there's no breaches along the security. You know, they direct traffic and they go where they want people to go. And so this is the best method to prevent people from getting shot. Most venues, you know, you go to a sports event, you have this outer security perimeter, and you might have some snipers. And that leaves you pretty secure, actually. All right, next you got these bodyguards. Now these guys are for physical protection, so they're always around the president. They're always around former presidents, and they really try to handle short range threats. Most of these guys will carry a 9mm or some other hand rifle on them, and they're there to show a force. You know, you try and mess with Biden, these guys are going to be there, and you're like, well, I don't want to mess with them, because a lot of security, believe it or not, is a show of force. So they provide, and they're that show of force that you don't even try anything because they're there. Prevents a lot of things. They also are shields. So if you watch the Trump rally, what happened there, all of those guys jumped on top of him, and they were shielded from him. So they're literally protecting him from getting shot. They're here to take a bullet. So hard job. Out of all the jobs, that's probably the least one I'd want to do. You know, I have high respect for these. Now you have these crowd roamers. Now these guys, you're not going to know that they're secret agents. They're going to wander around the crowd, and they're going to identify threats inside of crowds before it happens. So you're not going to know they're there if they're good at it, and they'll remove you from the facility before you do something bad. Now we have this mid-range team. So here is one of the guys that, if you watch the video, he jumps on stage and he's got everything within mid-range. So if something tries to engage him, he shoots. If it's something within his sight, he shoots. You know, they're also a shore of threat. And then finally, you have this long range security. So this is your sniper rifle. And so these guys pick up guys from 1,000 2,000 yards with their equipment that they have right here. They typically located at an elevated position, so that way they have better range. And with the snipers, they can either be hidden or they could be a show of force. Remember, you got both those aspects. That a show of force prevents a lot of things from happening. So finally, you have your headquarters or your lead agent. And so, this is typical for any operation like this. You're going to have somebody in charge. They're going to set up your plan, and so they're going to execute that plan. They're also the liaison between all the different forces or all the people working together. So you got Secret Service, you got the police, and all of these communications flow through this headquarters, this lead agent, and he makes the decision on the ground on what needs to happen. So if they have some suspect shooter, he doesn't give the all clear for people to for the president to come up on the stage. So this is the security perimeter that they provided. So you can get all this information off of Chuck Grassley's website. He's pasted all of this stuff. All of this is provided by local police. I don't think they've released anything from Secret Service yet, but you have everything divided up into different sectors. Now, I want you to make sure and notice one thing about this is atop that 1 and 2 sector, there's nothing there. So that's a whole vulnerability right there. Now, they probably put roamers out there, police officers. Well, if you watch the video, there are roaming police officers there, but that's kind of a hole. This is another look. They set up a little 4-foot fence and they surround it all. Kind of doesn't make sense, if you want to prevent people to get in or out. But then again, this whole setup isn't really that good. Just the security perimeter and everything just doesn't make sense. Because you want something that's outside of rifle range. So that way there's not even a chance of somebody taking a shot. That wasn't followed here. This isn't typical operations. This is potentially the leader of the new free world here in a few months. And ultimately, you want to protect these individuals because at the end of the day, it comes down to the voters need to be able to vote for who they feel or who they want to. You have a lone gunman like this that takes him out before he even gets there. That disenfranchises all of the voters. Now we're going to go through and see what exact blind spots we had in the security. And so there was rumor that the sniper on this roof right here was the one who took the shot. He was blinded by that position because of that tree in the way. So he wasn't the one who took the shot. Now, there's been a lot of speculation on how many snipers they were. There said 2, 3. You only saw 2. But there was actually 6 snipers out there. The ones that I cannot confirm where they were at or if they were located, elevated, or anything is number 5 and 6. So the top one left sniper, 2. Then you have number 3 and number 4 on the roof. And then you have 5 and 6 down here at that Butler Farm show. So you have 6 snipers on the ground at this location. And this is their pattern. Now, I didn't fill in the whole entire thing like I should, but you've got that clear hole at the top right that I have highlighted in red that is a blind spot for your snipers. So I identified 2 snipers that were in that building. So if you take a look at some of these videos as you go through, You have the window on the left and the window on the right there. Both of those are open. So those were the location of the position of the snipers there. So here's a quick timeline. So they first identified this subject at 1710. They saw him walking around. They don't give any indication on this timeline on why they thought he was a subject, but they ended up taking a picture and they noticed that he was looking and using a rangefinder to find out ranges. And so they reported that in at 1723 or 532. Now they've drawn the suspicion of this guy. So they went ahead and called this into the command. So that's the leadership to let them know, hey, we got an issue on the ground here. They did additional call in to the command with the other sniper groups and relay that information to them. So they made a couple attempts to tell them, hey, there's somebody here. There's somebody here. Finally, that's when the command actually acknowledges, like, hey, yeah, okay, he's there. So it took them 15 minutes to get a confirmation that that command received that message, like, we got a suspect person on the ground. And so this comes up to 6 o'clock. So Trump goes on stage at 6:02. So between 5:55 and 6:02, there's no call made out for him to say, hey, clear the suspect, make sure he's good to go before, we bring Trump, because he's already disappeared and they already suspect something. You look at the videos, everybody's screaming. It's clear. 20 minutes, they knew that guy was up there. And that's clearly before Trump was actually on stage. That's the thing. Nobody said, hey, let's clear this guy before we bring Trump out. All right, so at 6:12, that's when the shots are fired. So there's video going around at 20 minutes that they were sent. Or is it 2 minutes? Yeah, so they knew that he was up there way before Trump even left to go on stage. All right. So there was rumors. Some said 9. Some counted 10. There was 10 shots that were fired on that day. So Crooks got on the roof. He started in the prone position, and he fired at Donald Trump. So those are 3 steady rounds. You can hear it go tink, tink, tink. I mean, that's what it sounded. So by the 3rd round, if you take a look at all the video, that's when Trump ducks. Now, this is where he's protected by Secret Service. So in order for Crooks to get additional shots on Trump, he has to elevate his position in order to make those shots. I can provide you the calculations if you want, but he has to elevate himself in order to fire at Trump. And when he elevates his fire at Trump, he also has side rounds. He has side sights on his rifle and uses those instead. So he fires off 5 rounds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, there's audio going around. Be like, these are different shots. These are definitely different shots. No, he changed his position. He brought himself up and he had to elevate himself in order to shoot at Trump. That caused, and then he also tilted his rifle. When he did that, it changes the sound. So when you hear these audios going around, be like, the sound, it sounds different. It sounds different. It's because he changed his position. So he took 5 additional shots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's your 8 shots right there. Now there's an officer on the ground that once he shot off that 5th round, he returned the fire at Crooks. So there's an officer on the ground, one of the state police guys, and he fires at Crooks. Because him just firing at Crooks, because he couldn't he couldn't fire at crooks before he was out of prone, but he could fire at crooks after he elevated himself. So he didn't have line of sight on crooks prior to him elevating himself. So he elevated, that's when the officer had line of sight and could shoot him. He didn't have line of sight on crooks before then while he was at prone because he was protected. But once Trump went down, he couldn't clear over the bleachers, so he had to elevate himself. Repeat this over and over. So that's 9. And then, so after that officer shoots at him, he has to duck back down again. Now he's no longer in view of that. So you have those other 2 snipers on the roof. One of them is facing towards the building. He doesn't have line of sight on crooks because of the tree in the way. The other sniper on the other side does have line of sight, but here's the thing. They were faced the other way. So they had to turn themselves around, and then once they turn them around, and then they sit down and shot. So that took him 16 seconds from the first shot fired. It probably took him a few seconds to locate that shot, but it took Secret Service 16 seconds to engage the shooter and kill him. So that's the timeline and everything that happened. So that's why it took him 16 seconds to shoot it off, because the sniper was facing the other way. Now let's go ahead and evaluate, what went wrong and who was at fault here. So the bodyguards completed that job. I know there was a lot of criticism going around about them not being too tall, whatever. Once Trump went down, they did their job and they covered him. So they kept him covered until you hear all clear on there. So up to that point, they did their job. Now, there's attitude within, Secret Service or any service where, hey, if your guy that you're protecting even gets shot at, you failed. Or gets shot at and hit, you failed. Or that's not realistic that you're going to guard him for every single shot. You're going to have a few shots that the shooter's going to be able to get off before anybody can get up there to guard. I don't care how fast you are. They could have had the top-notch guys out here, and he still would have got shot. Now, the mid-range guys, all of those guys were on the ground. Now, remember when I talked about the elevation. So they don't have line of sight to the top of the roof. So they couldn't get him, but once they did, shot him. It actually made him stop shooting the crowd. They probably saved a few lives because he could have got more rounds off if that officer wasn't down there shooting him. I mean, he's a hero. And then also the sniper. So the snipers did their job. With accordance to the layout of their plan, they executed it in accordance to how they were instructed to do. You had one sniper facing one way and one facing the other. The one that's facing downstream wasn't looking at that building. They're the ones who had line of sight. That's not on them because that's the plan that they were told to execute. So I don't see anybody within the vicinity of the Secret Service on the guys on the ground who were responsible or put the president and life in danger. They did a good job. I hand it to the bodyguards. They're there to literally take a bullet for Trump, and they protected him. They weren't there protecting him. Who knows? The shooter might have got up and shot them. So when it comes down to it, who's in charge of this operation? All right, so leadership takes charge. everything goes up to leadership. But when you look at the failure modes across all the different parts and components of this, it's got to be landed on the leadership. So there was holes in security. There was massive holes in security. Usually they have a perimeter that's outside of the range of a rifle. 5, 6, 700 yards. Their perimeter was like 50 yards. If you take a look at that diagram, that was their perimeter. That was a poorly set up perimeter. Second, they have holes in security. Now they can fix those holes in security because I showed you where they had all those snipers laid out. You look at the execution of the plan, they should have been in those buildings like it was shown. All this is posted on Chuck Grassley's website, and they leave one singular hole where that tree is there to block the sniper from tagging him off. It's a hole in security. That's a failure of planning. They also had other opportunities as well in order to remedy this. That's don't let Trump go on stage if you have a threat or you have a threat in your sight. He should have never got on that stage in the first place. Now, they did relay that information to the person in charge. It's documented in the documents that Chuck has listed on his site. He should have never went on to the stage while there was a suspect shooter, a suspect person on the ground. You give it 5 minutes. You let the security do their job, pull them off, and it's good. Now, he's the one who has to make that call. And I'm not going to sit there and be light on him because these guys are supposed to be professionals. But you got a glaring hole in your security that you didn't have any eyes on. Your perimeter isn't even that good. And when you had the opportunity to even pull the suspect off of the vicinity when you knew he was a threat, you didn't. You let Trump go on stage and you let him talk. The kid found the one blind spot in the whole entire place in order to try and take out Trump. Everybody's picking on the snipers. Everybody's picking on the Secret Service, the bodyguards. They're not at fault here. And I know there was letters going around and be like, oh, we had to pull resources off of somewhere else. But they still executed the job. It wasn't clean, but they still executed. Now, the one person that didn't execute his job is leadership. The name's out there. Chuck tried to keep it, no. Hazley tried to keep it secret, but the name's out there and people's got pictures. He might even be on the screen. But this whole thing is a failure of the person planning this operation. Secret Service, all the guys on the ground cannot protect Trump if you do not lay out a good plan. It's that simple. Everybody on the ground executed. Now, I didn't get into state police, but ultimately the buck stops with Secret Service because they're in charge of the area. They're the one who laid out the plan. Be like, I need you here. I need you here. I need you here. There's obvious holes. If you put one of your snipers on the roof over there, this is done. This doesn't happen. Just the visible threat of a sniper on the roof right there. This never happens. You can put Rocky and Bullwinkle, put them in officer's uniform, put them on the top of the building, and this is done. This doesn't happen. Right. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed watching in. I usually do tech stuff. I decided to go a different route. I went on vacation and all this crazy stuff happened. And so I wanted to go through and squash some of the rumors because there's a lot of rumors going around. From everything that I've saw, it was a shooter, one shooter. Everything matches up. So the one bullet trajectory, I calculated that from where we knew it hit. It was about at 4 foot elevation from where Trump was at. So once Trump lowered himself, he was below that elevation. The shooter had to prop himself up and turn his gun sideways because he was using those side mounts. That's why your brass is ejected in different areas. So you had a group of 5 and then you had a group of 3. All right. I do tech stuff. If you enjoy tech, follow me, hit a like, subscribe, and have a good day.